Well, Sean, thank you for joining me. Excited to have you on.
Very excited to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
Well, you have been writing and teaching story for many years. So,
Yes.
the question, though, is why do stories matter?
Oh, wow. Why do stories matter? Let's start with the easy ones,
Yeah,
right?
the easy one. We'll go, we're diving straight
Diving
deep.
straight into it.
Yeah.
Yeah, stories matter on so many different levels, whether you're looking at it from the sociological, from the anthropological, from the theological. Stories is how we learn.
Mm,
Stories is how we are who we are. It's how we explore our identity. It's how we explore who we might be, who we might want to be. It's how we test everything from our ethics to even practical living. It's how we test what is important, what are our values. It is how we discover the other. It's how we find people who are not part of us. I was just talking with our administrative assistant here at Asbury, and she grew up on a farm in Iowa. I grew up in a small town. We were talking about for her, there wasn't anybody who wasn't white and poor in her area. How do we discover the world beyond ourselves? And I think definitely as people of faith, the other is important because we're all part of the same thing. And how do we learn to understand people who have not grown up the same way, who
mm.
have not had the same traditions necessarily as I've had, other than through extensive travel, which I recommend if you can travel, but we all can't travel, and through story. How can we safely go into environments that would be dangerous for us
Yeah.
otherwise? And not just physical danger, but emotional danger, theological danger, faith danger. Story is a great way to learn what is the rest of the world thinking. How are they operating? How
Mm.
can I understand where they're coming from when what they say to me doesn't seem to be making sense? Oh, I
Yeah.
watched their story or listened to their story. This is why Jesus taught in stories. Stories. I will say this too. We've launched into it, and I'm already on the soapbox because I was at a event, an experience, a Christian based experience, and they were one of their little kind of advertisements for themselves is they said, we want people to understand that the Bible's not story, the Bible's history. And I was like, oh, number one, we can contest it on a lot of ways, but I understand part of what they're saying. The Bible's real, it's true. And for many people, true and story don't meet. I think God designed us in a way that true and story actually, the only way to get to truth is through story. Um, Whereas history is too limited. And I think they thought they were expanding the power of the Bible, but they're actually limiting it when they say, oh, no, it's just a list of facts.
Yeah.
Story has meaning, and therefore the Bible has more meaning than the
Mm.
facts listed in the Bible. I don't know. Is that
Well, you this book that you recently put out called Meta Story. You have a
yes?
meta story framework. It
Mhm.
really looks like this is the story of God. This is God's story with us and humanity, His mission, what's going to happen. So, to help us zoom out, what
Mhm.
is this meta story framework, and why does this meta story framework help situate us even in our daily lives?
Yeah. So my perspective, actually, I'm going to reflect a little bit. Carrie Wallace did an episode with
Yeah.
Carrie, episode 286. For anybody who wants to go back and listen to it, I strongly recommend it. So her point of view, she says all of art is following God.
Yeah.
Was her quote. Inspiration comes from God, whether you know it or not. And really, my theory is not that far different from hers,
Mm,
in that I feel like all story points us to God, whether we know it or not. And it's not just, oh, yeah, of course, Christian stories point us to God or biblical stories. All story points us to God, whether you're
mm,
watching television, whether you're watching the latest Marvel movie, whether you're reading a novel, someone like a Tolstoy that's more obviously directing you towards God, or reading, Graham Greene. That's a bad choice because he's also intentionally pointing you to God, or reading just the latest Pot Boiler, the latest crime
yeah.
book. They're all, the structure of story points us towards God.
Mm,
We're designed. My big idea is that we're designed for story because, again, story is larger than just fact. So we're designed for something larger than just fact, and we're designed for story because that's how we find God.
Mm,
God's story, the shape of God's story is the shape of every story we yearn for. It's the shape of the stories that we want. The stories that complete us have that same shape. And it's because, in my opinion, it's because we're always searching for God in everything we do. So, of course, we're going to use the shape of story of starting in a normal situation and falling out of that, getting unbalanced, and having a quest to restore normal, and having a crisis, having a death, having a resurrection, coming back out of that crisis and ending up in a new place, in a place where we haven't been before. That's our arc of God, right? That's our arc of
yeah.
finding God. It's also the arc of history, which is why I think history is story, because
Yes.
it has a storyteller.
Yes, it's true. So, can you walk me through some of this meta story framework, just step by
Yeah,
step
yeah.
for me?
Yes, within the book, I mean, the book can be used for people who want to be writers to figure out how to write. But the distinction that my book has, I think, is each element, whether we're talking about character or plot or theme, is more obvious, dialogue, each element has a theological underpinning. There's a God underpinning for everything of why we do it, why we tell story the way we tell story.
Yeah.
So it's a kind of a combination of how to understand the story as well as how to write the story. So in the book, I break it down. I mean, I really go into detail of here, each of the beats of a plot of a story, here, how dialogue and theme interact. So an obvious example is structure. So the uber structure of every story
Yeah.
is you start out in balance. There's an unbalance to it. You go on a quest to try to restore a balance. You have a midpoint that changes everything.
Yeah.
Then you have another quest, and then it culminates in a crisis, which then leads to the coming out of the crisis into the climax, the final battle, and then you're into a new world. You're into a new
Yeah.
balance, and that actually. So I'm going to cheat a little bit with this because I'm summarizing, but it aligns exactly with our history of the
Mm,
balance. We start out in the normal. For us, we call
yeah.
that the Garden of Eden, right?
Yep.
It's the normal world. Everything is good, but then something happens that unbalances that.
Yep.
In this case, we decide to eat an apple, the one thing that we're not supposed to do. We decide to do, and it throws the world out of whack. We are no longer in this relationship with God. And then history. You can think of history as a long series of attempts by God to restore that balance, to
Hmm.
bring us back into the fold. So, you look through all the Old Testament, it's like, let's try this. We're going to try this. We're try this thing. None of it working, right? It's all these attempts and failed attempts culminating in the midpoint, which is the arrival of God on earth. Nothing else worked. So I'm going to intervene in history. I'm going to step in. I'm going to remove my own throne, my own godliness to join mankind to be able to find that solution.
Mm,
And then here's where I'm going to cheat a little bit, but I'm going to go into the second quest as Jesus' life on earth, his ministry. It's all about, can I get you guys to see it? Can you see it? I've been saying, hey, don't murder your brother. And you've been saying, okay, so if I kill him this way, does that count? If I kill him this way, does that count? Like, what's the legal? And he's like, no, you don't understand. Love God, love each other. It's like, okay,
yeah.
but isn't it loving my neighbor when I stone her for adultery? Isn't that loving? It's like, okay, you're not getting it. You're looking at the wrong thing. Can I get you to look at the right thing?
Mm,
And so that's the quest two. And of course, it ends in a crisis.
yeah.
We crucify him, we put him on a tree, and we kill God. And that's kind of like the end of that, except it's never the end because the
Yep.
crisis is never the end. There's the resurrection. There's the
Mm,
coming back from that, which is the climax, the final battle of
mm,
we're going to end up, I tell people we start in one place, we end up in another. We're starting in the garden. We're
yeah.
ending in a city. We're ending in New Jerusalem
Yep.
because there's been a change. Because you've gone on this journey, you're going to land in a new place.
Mm,
So look at every movie that you enjoy. You're going to be able to find all of those pieces in that order.
yep.
And it's God's story. It's just a reflection of
Mm.
God's story. So that's one piece of it. That's how structure kind of aligns.
That helps a lot. So if I'm looking at something and if we're looking at a story, let's take Knives Out. You talk about Knives
Mhm.
Out a lot in meta story. So Ryan Johnson's one of my favorite writer directors. So a lot of people would go, how in the world would Knives Out actually point to God in its structure, its dialogue. This is murder
Yeah.
mystery.
Yeah.
It's fun. There's a lot of twists and turns. We're enjoying it, but does it really point to God? Does story actually point to God?
Point to God.
So help us out. Tell us,
Oh,
how
okay.
does
All right.
story
Yeah.
actually point to
So one of the things we got to be careful of is the idea that every story points us to God. In ways, every story is mirroring God's story. So the track that we're following is going to be the same track. It doesn't mean that every story is good for us. It doesn't mean that every story is going to dump us off where we need to be. And it doesn't mean that every story, even the stories that have good aspects, that the bad aspects of it don't outweigh the good aspects.
Hmm.
So that's one caveat I want to lead with. For a lot of people, they're like, you've got so many secular examples, and some of them are R-rated, some of them are not in general good. The extreme example would be the movie Seven. The movie Seven explicitly talks about the seven deadly sins. The message of the movie is our culture is so in love with the seven deadly sins that we're destroying ourselves. I can't recommend for any great movie,
it? Is a great.
great
So
acting,
I did get
great
caught
writing.
sneaking into that in the theater. They kicked me out because I wasn't old enough. But
Oh, really?
I
Yeah,
did sneak into that one.
it's a movie I actually regret watching
Hmm.
because the dark elements in it, for where I am, for who I am, the
Yeah.
dark elements were so dark that they were damaging to my soul in a way,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
For other people, that's not their thing, right?
Yeah.
So we each have to, just kind of as a quick aside, and I'll get back to your question. I tell my students before we watch things, like throughout the semester, we're going to be reading different scripts, we're going to be watching different things. We need to be adult about choices of what to watch. And I don't mean by that, which a lot of people say, oh, you need to be adult enough that you can handle that language, or you need to be adult enough that you can handle that, storyline or whatever it is, the violence. It's like, no, no, no. We need to be adults enough the way Paul calls us to be adults of we know who we are, we know where we are in our walk.
Hmm.
And I need to be adult enough to say, yeah, I know that movie is perfectly fine for y'all,
Yeah.
but I can't watch it because my particular either weakness, things that draw me into, I know
Hmm.
people who can't handle strong language, not because they don't like strong language, but because they'll start to use it if they're
Yeah.
exposed to it. Right. So, yeah, you got to know you can't do that. For me, sexual violence, I can't, it haunts me. It hurts my
Hmm.
soul.
Yeah.
It's the kind of thing that, so I can't watch Law and Order SVU
Hmm.
even though that's
Yeah.
PG or PG 13, that's
Hmm.
too much for me. So I need to know, no, I'm not going to watch that movie for that reason. So I'm not saying that every movie is therefore a God movie and go ahead and
Right.
watch it. Every TV show is
Yeah.
a God show. So therefore go and watch it. But if you look at the right elements, you can see how we're training ourselves to read God's story through some of these stories
Hmm.
as well as the look. So Knives Out, certainly the structure has that same structure. Thematically, Knives Out talks a lot about truth as a core theme to it. What is truth?
Yeah.
But another major key to it is having the courage to do the thing you know is the right thing.
Hmm.
So, for those of you who've seen Knives Out, we have this balance. We're using this thing, it's called setup and payoff, which again, God uses setups and payoffs.
Hmm.
So understanding how they're used in movie helps us see how it's being used in the Bible, helps us seeing how it's being used in our lives.
Hmm.
So in Knives Out, a little bit of a spoiler, but there's a character. I'm going to be vague enough.
Yeah.
There's a character at the beginning of the movie who has an opportunity to make a 911 call to save somebody and is talked into not doing it because it's going to get her into trouble.
Hmm.
And that same character at the end of the movie has an opportunity to make a 911 call. She knows if she does this, it's over. She's done.
Yeah.
She's lost. So she has this mirroring thing of choosing to do it at the
Hmm.
beginning. And then by the end, her character has changed enough for her to make a different choice.
Hmm.
Right? That setup and payoff. This, we can see that echoed in, certainly see it echoed in the Bible all the time of the opportunity. Peter has an opportunity to say, yes, I know him. Yes, I'm with him, and
Hmm.
denies him, right? And then has a later opportunity to go through the growth and stand in front of 5,000 people and say, yeah, arrest me. I know
Hmm.
him. He's mine, right? We're seeing that same Knives Out setup payoff in his story. And if you look closely enough, you're going to see it in your own faith journey. You're going
Yeah.
to see those moments where you were tested and you failed the test. And everybody, even that inner voice is saying, it's over. you're done, you're not a good person, you're a horrible person. And then we see that, oh, I was given another opportunity. I was given a chance to learn and grow from it. So
Mm,
something as simple as that, and we see that in all of these movies, but it's training us. When we see it in the movie, we enjoy it in the movie, we like it in the movie because it resonates, because that's how God made us. And if we're wise, we can take a step back
mm.
and apply that to our own faith journey as well.
You talk about some redemptive storytelling as well. And redemptive storytelling, sometimes if you're looking at Christians trying to do do art and they have an agenda behind things,
Yes.
sometimes it doesn't work very well. Sometimes you feel like you're manipulated.
Yes.
What doesn't work when it comes to story, especially in the Christian world where we're trying to actually portray a message?
There's so many things, so many things. And I'm a big critic of Christian media because I'm a Christian. I think we have to critique in the house. If we don't critique in the house, if we say, oh, no, no, no. And it's been mentioned by some of your guests on your show. It's been mentioned on other shows of this idea of let's write something and then slap a verse on it. And then we
Mm,
can call it
yeah.
Christian because it now has a good message. But the message and the medium, the message of the storytelling itself, the storytelling is part of the message.
Mm,
And that's where one of the places where we miss the boat a lot
mm,
is we do poor quality storytelling because we argue that poor quality doesn't matter as long as it has a good message.
mm,
And the message is I have a character who's saying Christ is Lord, but I don't care enough about the quality of the movie to make it a good movie. So
mm.
my message to my non-Christian audience is they want to say Christ is Lord, but they don't really believe it enough to work hard.
Yeah.
It isn't important. It isn't valuable enough to them.
Yeah.
So Christ isn't really Lord. Christ is Lord is something we say.
Yeah.
That's the message of your movie.
Mm,
It's not Christ is Lord, right? So that's one of the things. The other thing that doesn't work is lying,
mm.
which should not surprise us. I'm shocked. I'm shocked at how many times in Christian environments, I used to work for a company. This was ages ago, where they were asking us to lie to our customers, and I said, we're Christians. We can't do that. And he said, no, 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 no. We're a Christian organization. Our work is important to God. It's important for the kingdom. Therefore, we need to stay afloat. We need to stay in business.
Mm,
So, therefore, whatever we do to stay in business is godly. Um, and that sounds insane,
yeah.
but we see it over and over and over again. We
Mm,
need to get people into the church. So it doesn't matter how we get them into the church. It doesn't matter. And we love to lie as Christians. We love our marketing. So one of our biggest lies deals with marketing. We want people to come to the church, so we want the church to look like a nice, easy, safe place. So we tell people one of the most popular lies that we tell in Christian movies is if you accept Jesus as your savior, you will never have a problem ever again. This
yeah.
solves all of your problems.
Yeah.
Right? We'll never do it. And it's not true because we're starting to do this. We're getting better.
Yes.
But that kind of movie, the people who make those kind of movies would never have a movie that is, the salvation is always the climax
Mm,
and then their life is fine.
yeah.
It's rarely the inciting incident.
Yeah.
And now your life is in trouble. This is the thing that
Mm,
unbalanced your life is you became a Christian. And we all know, Jesus, remember when he says, hey, take up your pillow and follow me. Or where he says to his disciples is warning, everybody's going to love you. Nobody's going to ever treat you badly because of me.
yeah.
Nobody's ever going to, right? It's the opposite.
Yeah.
And our stories, but that's not good marketing, right?
Yeah.
Comcast or Verizon, they're never going to run an ad saying, hey, use Verizon. You'll have trouble making phone calls, right? They're going to say, oh, it always works great. It always works best. It's always better than. So we lie to get people into the
Mm,
church, and that never works because people see right through it. People know that they look at the church and they say, yeah, that person has been a pastor for 25
mm,
years and he's going through that.
yeah.
Or even what do you do when you say all your problems are solved? Oh, and now I have a prayer request. My child has cancer,
Yeah. Exactly.
right? Well,
Yeah.
that doesn't meet your marketing.
Mm,
So we protect God, we
mm,
protect the church. We at our heart we don't believe that God can defend Himself. Um, So, another one of our favorite lies is we have the Christian versus the atheist storyline. It's one of our favorite storylines.
Hmm.
And the atheist is dead right evil. The atheist is like, I don't care that you have cancer. The atheist is like, laughing at your misfortune. And that person, and he's stupid.
Yeah.
You know, I'm going to prove to you that God doesn't exist because I can't see him.
Yeah.
Look around you. Can you see him? I can't see him. Ha! I proved it, right? Well,
Mm,
you're an idiot.
mm,
So that's a lie. So the people who are outside the church go to that movie, or half of the people
mm.
inside the church go to that movie, and they go, well, I don't know that guy. I've never seen that guy. I've
Yeah.
never had that confrontation. It's a lie to say, oh, God is so strong that he can beat somebody as long as that somebody is maniacally evil for no reason, as long as that person
Yeah.
has no compassion. I'm sorry, just post on Facebook at some point, just post.
Mm,
Does anybody know an atheist who's ever given money to cancer research?
yeah.
Now, according to our movies,
Mm,
it's going to come back, no, I've never heard of such a thing.
yeah.
Or somebody who's not a Christian. Have you ever heard of a Buddhist who's been nice
Mm,
to somebody? Have you
yeah.
ever heard of a Muslim person who has raised their children well? Well, not according to our movies, right? So we lie, doesn't work story. It's bad
Mm,
storytelling. Therefore, it doesn't work.
yeah. So then what does work? So let's think, I want to think of like villains and solutions to stories. If you were talking like, the atheist is the villain, it's a caricature. It's not a real person. What is like working in the gray look like of like, hey, there are actually maybe some human redeeming elements of this villain, and there are
Yeah.
some evil elements of this villain. How can we create something that actually has more multi dimensions to it and not just one caricature of
Yeah.
something?
One way to start is don't choose the easy villain. So I did a movie called Unlawfully Yours. My lead is an atheist. She's lovely. You're rooting for her. You want the pastor to fall in love with her. She doesn't have the right theology, right?
Yeah.
So she's not the villain of the piece. Actually, a church lady is the villain of the piece. And that forces you as a writer, as a creator, as well as an audience to not look for the easy answer.
Yeah.
Christian, good. Atheist, bad. Right? Because you're a central character, the character you want everybody to follow, the character you want
Mhm.
everybody to root for. Jesus does that, right? In the story of the Good Samaritan, the Good Samaritan is not the central character. You have to read my book to understand that. But the Good Samaritan is supposed to be the villain
Yeah.
and is not. The Good Samaritan's a human being who sees another human being, right? Who
Yeah.
sees rightly. So that's one kind of way to do it. The other is when you have your villain who needs to be villainous. I like to do the same trick that actors do. So my wife is an actress. She loves playing villains because they're delicious.
Yes.
But when she's playing a villain, she has to come up with why do they want what they want. I actually just saw a critique of the recent Snow White movie. I haven't seen the Snow White movie, but that's one of the things they complain about is the
Mm,
witch wants Snow White to be dead, wants to be the prettiest in the kingdom, wants to run, but there's no reason why she wants it
yeah.
other than she's a villain. And most our easy fallback is, well, they're the villain because of the villain. Because not because they have a positive motive. So if you look at Thanos in the Marvel Infinity War and Endgame, he sees that overpopulation is destroying planets.
Yeah.
So his plan to delete half of the universe, half of life, has a good motive. Right? So you come and go, oh, he's trying to do good. He just is going about it in the wrong way.
Mm,
So often it can be the villain can be trying to do good, going about it in the wrong way.
mm,
And the third approach is I would give them power. Um, David and Goliath. Goliath outsizes David, right? Goliath has all
mm,
of the cards. So the victory, there's a lot of reasons you want to do that, but one of which is it's a real victory. It requires courage of character for the victory. I have a whole section of the book where I do that. This is one of the things that Marvel does right in so many of their movies is the villain is always stronger than. Um, if it's an argument movie, if you've got your atheist arguing against your Christian,
Mm.
anytime any of the argument movies are brought up in my classes, I haven't seen a lot of them because they drive me crazy. But
Yes.
somebody will bring up one of them and I'll say, okay, I haven't seen it, but you tell me, when the atheist is making his arguments, as a audience member, have you ever thought, oh crap, he's right? Or have you always thought, oh, what an idiot, what an idiot, what an idiot?
Mhm.
And if you thought, oh crap, he's right, then you've got a good villain. Then
Yeah.
you've got, you've
Yeah, that's
got
good.
the devil's number is 666. Earl Palmer said the importance of the devil's
Mm.
number to its audience is that they know that God's number is 7.
Mm.
So the devil is 6. Spread 6 out to eternity. However you want to read it in there, 6 to the 6th power to the 6th power.
Yeah.
God is 7 to the 7 to the 7. The
Mm.
devil is strong. God is stronger. And that's kind of our message in our
Yeah.
movies, right? Should be our
Yep.
message in our movies. Can you make them strong? I did that with a play. I did an adaptation of The Island of Dr. Moreau, H.G. Wells's
Mhm.
Island of Dr. Moreau.
Yeah.
I did that as a play. I intentionally gave all of the best monologues to Moreau. And I gave him a chance to convince us why what he's doing is right. Because toppling that had so much stronger significance
Yeah.
to an audience than saying, "Hi, I'm an idiot."
Exactly.
and I'm wrong, right? That has
Yes.
no emotional, that has no intellectual, that has no
Mm.
theological. You're not going to grow from that, especially if you come in agreeing with the villain.
Yeah.
You're certainly not going to grow if the guy up on the screen is not mimicking the thoughts that you've had.
Mm.
But
Yeah.
if the guy on the screen can mimic those thoughts, and then somebody can come along with an actual answer,
Mm.
now we're talking.
Yeah. You dive through the Marvel Cinematic Universe of what Marvel looks like with this story, and some of this redemptive story. It's good. The things that I found recently, I'm going to spoil Thunderbolts, the new Marvel
Hmm.
movie, a little bit. But what I found really fascinating with something new from Marvel, which I don't think they've done great since Infinity War,
Right. They
but
haven't.
but
Here, pockets here and there, but yeah.
yes, pockets here and there. The solution to the villain in
Mm-hmm.
Thunderbolts wasn't about death and violence and
Mm-hmm.
more killing. It was
Mm-hmm.
about love and community
Community,
and
yeah.
bringing people into a true community and
Yeah.
place. It was a refreshing look at something. I go, I know the story. There's a villain. They're going to kill him. And we're there. What happens when we start to usurp the standard storyline and we actually tell a better story? And I think maybe a story that it more aligns with Jesus and what he's trying to do with us.
Yeah. Early Marvel, one of the reasons that they were so good,
Yeah.
I mean, they had their stinkers early on, just like now they're in the occasional Thunderbolts versus Captain America, New World Order, which was just a sloppy, sloppy movie. Early on, is that most people would say, "Oh, superhero is a genre," and it kind of sort of is, but it's not a genre. It's not a main genre. So Marvel early on said, "We're going to use superheroes as the setting for our action movie, Iron
Yeah.
Man, or for our war movie, Captain America: First Avenger, or for our spy movie, Captain America, whatever the Winter Soldier,
Yeah.
or for our comedy, or for our romance." So it became the setting and not the, oh, we know how superhero movies go.
Mm.
If you look at their competitor, who I used to work for, I worked for Warner Brothers for 10 years, so the DCEU
Yeah.
hurts my soul. But the competitor said superhero is a genre because it has a specific form. Every superhero movie should look like every other superhero movie.
Yeah.
And that's exactly right. The reason that Thunderbolts is so powerful is because it's a drama about self inflicted trauma.
Yeah.
Can you overcome it? Does it define you? If you are somebody who's done something bad, does that mean that for the rest of eternity, that's who you are?
Mm.
Or can you move past it? And as you said, the solution, violence is the attempt to solve the solution because that's how we attempt everything. And the heroes literally stop the violence from happening to replace violence with community and uh, uh, really kind of creating its own support group. We're
Hmm.
here for you. We've been where you've been. West Wing has an interesting moment where one of the characters who had trouble in the earlier season is facing off with another character who's now going through his own trauma. So Leo McGarity tells to Josh, Josh, when Josh thinks he's going to get fired, he's joke, and it's I'm going to warn you ahead of time. It's not a joke. A guy falls in a hole, and somebody walks past, and he says, "Hey, can you help me?" And the guy writes a prayer and throws it into the hole. Somebody else comes by, and he says, "Can you help me?" The guy throws some money into the hole and keeps going. It's a version of the Good Samaritan. And
Yeah.
then his friend comes by. He says, "Friend, hey, can you help me?" And his friend immediately jumps into the hole. And the guy's like, "Dude, I wanted you to pull me out of the hole. You can't help me down." He says, "No, you don't understand. I've been in the hole before. I can help you find the way out."
Mm.
And I just thought that was a beautiful kind
Yeah.
of that's the Thunderbolts, right?
Yeah.
It's a group of people saying, "I have been in the hole. Together we can find our way." It's a great biblical message in a movie made by people who have no interest in making a biblical message, but it's
Yep.
because I think they told the truth. I think
Yeah.
they wanted to explore the
Mm.
characters, and this is where truth telling comes in. Even if you're not, in my opinion, if you're not a Christian but you tell the truth, you're going to be God.
Yeah.
They said, "Look, we're telling stories about these characters. What's going to save these characters is not another defeat of a bad guy. What's going to save these characters is for them to stop being alone,
Mm.
come together as a community, broken community, acknowledge we're a broken community, and together we're going to heal."
Mm.
I'm glad you brought that up. I fortunately saw that before I saw Captain America: New World Order, because I might have just given up on Marvel.
Yeah.
It's like, oh,
I've
we've
given up
stopped.
on Marvel. I have given up on Marvel,
Yeah,
and I was like, needed a movie to watch. Thunderbolts was out. I was like, oh, there was something,
there's
something
something there.
there.
They're
It
actually
was
trying to
great.
say something.
I was like, excited about that.
Yeah.
So that's fantastic. So how do we do this? So if you're looking at story, if you're reading film or
Mhm.
movies, TV, if you're looking at art or literature, how do we look at story? How do we engage our culture faithfully as we are part of this, God story here and
Yeah.
now? And we actually have a role to play in this God story. How do we engage story faithfully in the culture?
Yeah, I mean, step one is engagement and knowing that it's engagement. Convinced ourselves that entertainments are meant to just be background. We're supposed to lean back in our chair and let it do its magic on us for whatever, let us distract us. And sometimes you need that. I'm not opposed to that at all. We definitely have music that's designed to just distract you for a little bit. One of the healing powers of entertainment can be just the distancing from the pain, right?
Mm.
Distancing from you come in at the end of the day carrying a heavy load, and you watch your favorite show or you put on your favorite album. I almost said record. Wow. You can tell how old I am.
Records in these days, so
That's right.
it's
They're back
okay.
in. You're
Yeah,
too
they're
old.
back in.
Or whatever it is, or just flip through a book of poems, and at the end you've let go. That's a healing power. So I don't want to diminish that,
Yeah.
but even that is not leaning back and letting it wash over you. It's leaning into it, knowing that story has an effect, knowing that every story. My students have fought me with this, but every story has a message.
Yeah.
And if you know that, then you're looking for something different. Um, so sometimes it's going to be, yeah, so I'm going to be watching NCIS and I'm going to be just kind of vegging out a little bit. I know the storyline. I know that it's about justice. I'm going to just kind of relax into it and in character banter. And that's fine. Other times you say, you know what, I'm here because I want to be involved.
Mm.
Right. So
Mhm.
whether you're watching Wicked sing along or whether you're watching Thunderbolts and you're going to cheer along, but you're leaning into it even more, following
Mm.
the story, following the entertainment, allowing the emotion of the story to take you away. And then the third is the intellectual of, I know I'm going to be watching them because I want to see what they have to say,
Mm.
and I'm listening for what they have to say. And there are movies out there that are like fantastic movies like No Country for Old Men or the
Yeah.
first Joker movie was really, really well made. Those movies come from their point of view is that there is no God. God does not exist. That's my take. Some people will argue that on No Country, but I think that ultimately that's what it's trying to say. What is the world like when there is no God? As opposed to a movie like The Godfather, which I think is also a very Christian.
Mm,
The Godfather says there is a God. What happens if you choose to not follow him?
mm.
Right, two very different kind of things.
Yep.
So, is there a valid country or for Joker? Yes, but you have to come in intellectual, knowing I'm here to hear what they have to say, so I can understand my fellow person who's made in the image of God, who believes that there's no God in their world. I can understand where they're coming from. I think Sinners would be a good example of this. Sinners,
Yeah.
there is a God in their world. There is spirituality in that world, but I have no clue. I have a strong clue of what my African American brothers and sisters in Christ,
Yeah.
how they view God and how they view the world. I have an inkling as a middle aged white man. I have an inkling of what it feels like for them to be in the same religion that I'm in. When there are those of us who I see it through a white lens because that's my background, right?
Yeah.
I don't understand the African Americans who are not part of the church, who might still be spiritual, who are not atheists, but they have rejected Christianity as an option.
Yeah.
My brain's like, why would you reject that? What, like, if you're looking for spirituality, why, what? Watch Sinners. You'll understand. Oh, this is where they're coming. This is what it represents. This is them. This is the lens
Mm,
through which they're seeing the religion, the white man religion that was imposed on their ancestors, right?
yep.
Very, very valuable. But it requires going in with your brain. It requires you not going, okay, I'm going to turn my brain off while I engage.
Yeah.
Again, Carrie Wallace, I just loved your interview with her. But I think she was the one that talked a bit about the discipline of creativity
Yeah.
instead of kind of shutting off the creativity.
Yeah.
And she talks about creativity as a practice. Writing something can be a prayer practice, singing can practice. And I love that with this conversation, with that question of enable, can you sit with the spirit watching the movie together and have the conversation that you would have with your friends as you're watching it? Can watching a secular movie like Thunderbolts be a prayer? Um, yeah,
Yeah.
that's the long answer. I think all of my answers used to be long answers.
Yes, yes, it can be a prayer. Josh Larson has a book called "Movies Are Prayers." I like how movies are prayers to God, and so that's it's part of a spiritual discipline is actually watching a movie or some spirit. I really love watching a movie. And I like to do it with the spirit on my own sometimes and just go for a walk afterwards and like really just digest it and discern what was happening and really go into it.
I love that idea. I see movies where about once every other week with some friends from church, um, and we always go out after
Yeah.
and have a conversation about what did we see, what were they saying, what was happening in there.
Yeah. Yeah. It's really good. Good. If you look, so for us, if we're people of story, if Jesus is a master storyteller, if God's, this is how we find our identity and who we are, this is how we relate to God is story. How can we embody story to others? So this is an evangelism question because
Yeah.
evangelism, I think, is storytelling.
Yes.
It's a storytelling medium of the church to actually let people know that there is a bigger story that they are in, and we should invite people in to live this story out. Is there a better way for us to embody the story when we're sharing the story with others?
Yeah, yeah. You said it. Embody it. I grew up late '70s, early '80s was kind of my high school plus years, especially with things like the Have a Reason books and the Be Ready with the Argument book and the Josh McDowell's. Love those. But I think we've overemphasized argument and we've overemphasized reason. We need to be smart. We need to have reason. Um, but that's not the road to salvation. uh, uh, the church made a mistake during the Enlightenment, I think, because the age of reason. It's like
Yes.
we can reason our way through to the solution to any problem,
Mm,
and the church said, "Well, we can too. We can do that too,"
mm,
and they let go of mystery. They, in a large part, let go of story. That's where this concept of everything is literal, therefore everything has no meaning beyond what it means.
mm,
Um, and and God did not design everything as literal; He designed everything to have meaning.
mm.
So my friend Kathy did it was like a Peace Corps type thing
Yeah.
uh, down to Guatemala, and her job was to teach farming techniques because the, the farmers there were struggling, um, and she had many predecessors. Many people had gone with the organization before, went down, gave lectures, handed out seeds, and never had any effect whatsoever. Kathy went down and uh, farmed, bought a little bit of
Mm,
land, farmed for 1 year, gave no lectures, no conversations other than howdy neighbor and being a good neighbor to the people around her.
mm,
And then at the end of the year, the people around her saw her crop, said, "How'd you do that?" "Oh, here's how you did that. Here's how I did that."
mm.
This is what we're missing in a lot of our evangelism is the embodying of it. We need to live as if we love God above all else. And we need to live as if we
Yeah.
love our neighbor above all
Mm,
else.
yeah.
We need to live as if we're not the most important thing.
Mm,
We need to live as if we've been redeemed.
mm,
We need to live as if we're broken people and as if we're working on ourselves. We need
mm,
to live as people of hope who have a hope not because we've arrived, but we have a hope because we haven't arrived.
mm.
Uh, the people around us, if the people around us see us fall and get back up, if the people around us see us, like during the plague, we missed a huge opportunity. During the plague, the church grew tremendously because the people who did not have God ran away. The people who knew God ran into
Yeah.
the sick areas. If we believe that what we say is true, if I were to go to you and say, "Hey, the Kia Soul is the best car ever. You need to buy a Kia Soul." Personally, I drive a Dodge Ram, but you should do this, right? Then nobody's going to be buying the Kia Soul. It's funny I picked a Soul. I happen to drive a Soul, but the Soul, right? If you say you need Christ, you need to treat your wife well. Oh, am I having an affair? Sure.
Mm,
you need to follow Christ. He says take care of the poor. Do I take care of number one? Sure.
mm,
Right. Then they know it's like the movie. They know we don't believe it because we're not putting the effort into it to
mm,
follow what we believe. So embody, be a good neighbor, love your lovers,
mm.
um, and then preach. What the quote that's given to Assisi, right? Preach the
Yeah.
gospel at all times, if necessary, use words.
Yeah.
He doesn't say don't use words, use your words. He doesn't say don't do that, but the words should be coming after the embodiment.
Yeah. That's good. I want to know how your creativity, so as a storyteller, a writer, how does that inform some of your spirituality, some of your relationship with God? How does that affect it?
Yeah, I was really struck. There's a Madeline L'Engle quote. I think it's in Walking on Water, where she says a student asked her, how does, and she said, "Oh no, it's the other way around. My writing
Mm,
affects my relationship with God."
yeah. Mm,
Part of it is, as a creative, you have to get out of the way. So the best storytelling is not the storytelling. The best Christopher Nolan movies aren't the movies that you can see, oh, there's a Christopher Nolan moment, there's another Christopher Nolan moment. They're the movies where he has a big idea and then he gets out of the way and you forget you're in a story,
yeah.
right? That's for all movies, right? The best ones are the ones that you forget you're in a movie.
Yeah.
Um, the best creating is when you forget you're creating. It's when you get out of the way. So a lot of being a creator is being to become more and more in tune with inspiration. I call inspiration the Holy Spirit. Other people will just call it inspiration, but it's the Holy Spirit. Being in tune with it, listening to it, letting the story talk to you rather than you telling the story what to do, because that's where God really comes in. Andrea Nasfellow, she also teaches her with me. She wrote Night Out and a slew of other movies, and she's in talking about messages in movies. She's like, I'm in the Christian market. All of my movies are going to have a message. That's that's by design.
Mm.
The
Yeah.
producers want a message. The audience wants a message. So there's going to be a message. She says, I better make sure that it's the message God wants to be
Mm.
given. So that kind of on the surface as a creator, getting in touch with the creator
Mm.
is just common sense. So every story I'm working on, there's a thing called need, something a character needs. It's
Yeah.
a psychological thing. I describe it to my students. I say, if God looked at this character and said, here's one gift I want to give him that's going to make him a more human,
Mm.
a fuller human being, what would it be? As a writer, that forces me to look at all of my characters through a God lens. And it's easier for me after I've been looking at, I'm writing, if I write a story and this woman goes into town and, has to deal with the town folk, right? It's easy. It's easier for me once I've looked at each of those characters, including the town bully, and said, what would God want for him?
Mm.
To then be in the real world and look at my neighbor and go, God, what do you want for this person?
Mm.
How can I
That's
help?
good.
So if you can transfer it from
Yeah.
the communion necessary while you're creating to the communion when you're outside of that,
Mm.
it draws you closer to what is God's heart. What does God
Mm.
want in this world? What does he want you to do? Not, we fall into the trap of, oh, wouldn't it be great if my character got revenge, right? And then you
Yeah.
see, through the process of storytelling, that didn't fulfill him.
Mm.
Okay, God, that guy who keeps having his dog take his dump on my lawn. I see what you're saying here. Revenge maybe is not the way I should go, right?
Yes.
Uh, it also changes understanding story changes how I even read the Bible.
Mm.
I'm able to read it for more than the simple. When I read a parable by Jesus,
Yeah.
I'm not looking for what's the one thing that Jesus is trying to say. I'm saying, oh, he told it as a story, which means he's trying to say a lot more than the one
Mm.
thing.
Yeah.
So what this
Mm.
time in
Yeah.
reading it?
That's good. Is there a movie that impacted your own faith that you can remember?
Yeah, there have been movies that have really there have been movies that have made me wrestle with practical ethics,
Mm. Mm.
and it made me. I was always a black and white. It's either right or it's wrong.
Yeah.
And there's movies that have challenged that in a good
Mm.
way, I think, for me. And there have been movies that have made me see God clearer. One movie that made me see God clearer is Stranger Than Fiction,
Mm. Yeah.
which is a movie about a guy living his life who then realizes he's a character in a book.
Yeah.
Or there's an author, and he goes and tries to find the author. And I don't want to spoil it for anybody who does watch it, but he's confronted with a good storytelling decision that's not a good thing for him.
Yeah.
And by getting to know the author and reading the whole book, he comes to accept his part in the larger story. And that really helped me to see God
Mm.
directing our lives. And like, well, God, why would I have to go through that thing that
Yeah.
is not great for me? Oh, if I read the book, I would see why it's important to
Mm.
everybody. And then a movie that helped with the ethical gray would be The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance.
Mm.
It's an old movie. I saw it as a kid, Jimmy Stewart and John Wayne. And uh, there are things that are Jimmy Stewart's character was a lot like me. Like everything is black and white, and he can't deal with the way John Wayne deals with things and problems, and ultimately has to come to accept something that he would not have accepted at the beginning, um, because it's not a black and white. It's a gray.
Yeah.
And for me, what I love about that movie to this day is it's a wrestling movie. It's not a movie that says, no, 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 you need to accept those things. Or is it a movie that says, no, 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 you need to ignore those things? But it's something that makes me go on a regular basis, this is not as easy as,
Yeah.
yeah, Dumbledore says um, to Harry Potter at one point, he says, there's going to come a time that you're going to have to choose between what is right and what is easy.
Yeah.
Uh,
That's
and
good.
it's not a choice between what's right and wrong. That's an easy
Yep.
choice. That's an easy
Hmm.
choice. But it's a choice between what's right and what's, in that case, easy,
Yeah.
or the lesser of two, or the.
Yeah. Yeah.
So those are two movies.
That's really good. All right, couple questions. And
Okay.
one, if you go back to your 21-year-old self, what advice would you give?
The big piece of advice was something I talk a lot to my students now about, because I wish I knew that. And when you're looking at God's plan for you, when you're walking through your life, walking with God, it's not about the destination, it's about the direction. God is concerned about the direction, not the destination. And we so often, like in our careers, say,
Yeah.
I want to be in Hollywood, I want to make an Oscar, I want to get an Oscar. God has sent me on this. He's made me a storyteller. Therefore, I'm going to end up here. And God might be, I made you a storyteller because I need you over here. I need you at this
Mm,
church in Iowa doing their media. That's where I need you. So don't mistake, don't forget about the direction. Are you
mm,
going where God wants you to go? Am I living in God's will? Isn't did I arrive where God wanted me to arrive? Is am I taking the step I'm taking right now? Is that the step He wants me to take? Am I
mm.
facing the right direction? So that's what I would stop worrying so much about the end result. It's the
Yes.
journey, right?
Yes. Yes. It's just embodying who you are, how God created you
Yeah,
to be, and who He made you to be. I love that. That's so good. And you could do that anywhere.
anywhere.
You could be a storyteller anywhere. And
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
that's fantastic. Anything you've been reading or watching lately you could recommend?
Yeah, I'm gonna do another cheat here, because this is something I know you know about already. But a great companion piece to my book is Daniel Schwabauer's God of Story.
Yeah.
I actually uh, found out that Daniel was going to be teaching at the same conference I was going to be teaching. I hadn't heard of his book. His book had just come out, and I panicked because I thought, "Oh no, it's going to be my book, but better." And in reading it, it's a great companion
Yes.
piece to it. I know I'm laughing here because Joshua, I know you interviewed him. You have down 272 just so I could share it. But I loved everything about that book, and that book helped to change. Even though I'm steeped in story
Mm,
as God's story, reading it through Daniel's eyes, especially the examples he gives, because he'll talk about a story element, and then he'll give a point of view of a biblical story to fit how that fits, and it really does change the way you see how you read the Bible. So I highly
yeah.
recommend that.
Yeah. It's a good one. That's it's a great book. I love Daniel. He's a good guy, and yeah, I don't know why he's like 20 minutes from me, and I
Oh,
still have
really?
never met him in person. But
He's
but
hundreds of miles from me, but I met
yeah,
him in person, so
I know
I've one
exactly.
up to you.
Yes, you have. We anything you've been watching lately? You recommend?
Um, I've been listening to fascinating, and again talking about how to hear the voice of the other
Yeah,
through some commonalities. There is a podcast, Dolly Parton's America.
yeah, that's so
Uh,
good.
I think it's like eight-part podcast,
Yeah,
and it's two. I can't remember their names, unfortunately. I apologize for that. But the two producers kind of exploring the start of it is them at a Dolly Parton concert and seeing a guy wearing a MAGA hat to a lesbian couple, and
yeah,
all of them together just
yep,
lost enjoying Dolly Parton.
yeah,
And he thought, how in the world can one person bring our extremes together?
yeah,
It explores a lot about, but I learned a lot about Dolly, her faith, how her faith is reflected. I've been challenged a lot about how I reflect my faith and how I should do things differently, but also the effect her approaches. It's a brilliant little documentary series, and again, made by believers, and they're
yeah,
very upfront of it. They do an entire episode about faith, and they start it by saying, "I don't have this."
yeah.
So I was very, very nervous to talk to Dolly about it because I was afraid we're
Mm,
going to suddenly go whoosh, and suddenly everything was going to fall apart.
yeah.
So it's kind of, but it's a beautiful, beautiful little series.
Yes. Well, your book, Meta Story: What Marvel and the Messiah Can Teach Us About Great Storytelling, is available now.
Yes.
And you could go get that. How can people get your book? How can people connect with you? Where would you like people to?
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I have a website, www.gaffneyinkwell.com. So it's Gaf as in Frank, F as in Frank, NEYINKWELL.com. You can go there. You can order the book through there. You can also sign up for a newsletter. I have a monthly newsletter with just kind of tips to writers. I also have links on there to a YouTube series. I explore movies and TV shows. My gimmick is I exercise while I watch things. And I thought, you know what? If I see a good example or a negative example, I'm going to just pause the TV, hop off the bike, and talk to the camera. So the little
Nice.
5-minute chunks of examples. Also, my handle on all of the socials is at Gaffney. So you can order my book through the website. You can also go to Amazon. You can go to Barnes and Noble, anywhere that books are sold.
Great. Well, I would highly recommend following Sean as he is giving you tips as a creative storyteller. This book is fantastic, so I'd highly recommend it if you really want to understand what story is and how we are part of this grander story, this meta story, and how to actually share and tell stories. This is a fantastic book. So go and get it. I definitely recommend this one. So, Sean, thank you for this conversation. It was fun. It was a great conversation. Really enjoyed getting into story with you. So, thank you very much.
Thank you.